to skip over that. I think some of the context might be important.
And in terms of what history and like of which part, all of it, or
Yeah, I mean,
like your past meetings or what?
Yeah, there's not much to it. Like I take it everyone's read the original letter, the original audit.
Yep. Wait, which audit?
The
I have like 3.
The audit. Wait, so the audit for the process document, to which the state officials sent the SAG document, which is the main topic of discussion today.
Is that the thing you sent me last night?
No, this is in the past. I can find it for you.
Yeah, can you find me that? Because I have the SAG letter, but I don't see the audit.
Oh. I think context might be good then.
He's definitely aware of it.
Okay, all right.
I've probably read it.
I've heard there's a tag called concerning, and I have this like marquee of like concerning going through my mind right now.
No, we have like 800 documents going through the channel, so I've probably read it. I just don't remember which one it is.
Yeah.
This might take me a second as well. We have a lot that we go through.
Can you just give your context while
one
she's
of the
looking for it?
ones that I pinned? Is the Freedom of Information Act? No. FOIA?
No. Here, one
But
second.
that was before when I started compiling these.
Give me a second. All right, I'm gonna send you guys the original, like the series, in order, just so the context is built. Let me see. Should I send it to one of y'all and then y'all pass it along, or should I
do you
start?
mind sending it to me so I can put it in the proper channels?
Yep, we'll do. All right. So, oh man, this is scary. All right. Okay. So this is the one that I just sent you. This is the initial submission that was filed with the judges. It was then determined, from my understanding, that all justices were conflicted, given that you all had your signatures on it, at which point it was forwarded to the state officials, I'm presuming, who then gave us the following letter.
Oh yeah, I did see this actually. This was a whole docket posting.
Yes, I told you. There you
Yep.
are.
Yeah, I've seen this.
Okay. There you go. And that is the notice.
Yep.
Yep. And then I'm going to send you a document that we, my staff and Pride collectively worked on, sort of as a basis of, where we wanted to start the conversation with. Note that when you look at this is not us drawing a line in the sand and saying it's either this or we're out, but rather like this is kind of what we envision. Okay. Let me see. All right. All right. There you go. Pop these open. There we go. And all right, beautiful. Are you guys sending it to Dr. Naya as well?
Yes, I'm.
All right,
I'll do
beautiful.
that
Yep.
right now. Give me one
All right.
moment.
And then Abilene, Michael, Maeve, Tilly, you should already be in the Merrill documents.
I've got it.
Okay. What's your context that you wanted to talk about?
It sounds like you might have the context already. From what
Oh, the context was the posting. Okay, I just want to make sure that's what you meant.
exactly? Yeah.
Okay.
So, this mostly stemmed out of, well, actually, you know, I'll give some context. So
Okay.
what we were experiencing was as follows. Legislation was being updated. From what we observed and believed to be rather unprompted, sort of something would happen, state legislation would get altered, and we would learn about this by happenstance. The first instance of this was roughly 3 months ago. I don't remember what particular case it was, unless Michael, you can remind me.
Not off
Oh
the top of my
yes,
head.
actually, I do remember what it was. There was 6 pieces of legislation that were posted to City Hall, and during this phase where the legislation can go into the context
phase.
period,
Yep.
the actual contest legislation itself was altered to allow what we believe to be parties to immediately go and to get 25 signatures and bring it up a vote. So this having directly impacted us raised an alarm. As a consequence of this, there was a, let's call it a quote-unquote audit done by myself and about 4 different lawyers who went through all existing legislation and found that there was about 25 edits that were made without public notice. After this occurred for another series of 2 weeks, we put a open letter together and posted it to City Hall. There was also some other conversations had around this space with officials and whatnot. And I don't know what kind of conversation happened on your ends. Obviously, I'm not privy to it. But then we started getting the DOJ announcements, specifically one which stated that, things were busy, whatever. Here are the things that changed in the last 2 months. Following this, about 4 weeks back, there was, I want to say, a day before the mayors were elected in, myself and Pred, and a day afterwards, there was a couple things that were changed. Specifically around the Proposal and Approval Process Act. In addition to that, there was an alteration to the powers of the Marshals and DOC Act. There was also a different change to the powers of law enforcement, and also a change to the FOIA Act. All of which one of which specifically the FOIA Act, which was a direct result of myself and Pred requesting our own FOIAs.
What?
Wait, what? Wait, did you say what?
Yeah.
Is that a surprise or like you knew about
Yeah.
it? Oh,
Is that a surprise to you, Hella?
yeah.
It was
so
just like a.
yeah, so I look, the
Hell,
TLDR is I had a fucking drone following me around.
And
And
you request FOIAs to see if anyone's investigating you, and they basically said we're not going to go
They
through and
said-
get 500 FOIAs.
yeah, they said suck my dick, and then the FOIA Act was updated to due to quote unquote Nino abusing the system. Now, obviously, at that point, it became a matter of like, hold on one second. at that point, it kind of became a matter of like, okay, we've gotten our shit done. Let's start, throwing the stones back. And this was the first stone, and is kind of the parent to all the other audits. So we don't need to necessarily bring up the details of the FOIA and all that other stuff, but rather we went to the heart of it, which is the legislative proposal and approval process. The sentence of which was the biggest contention, which there was a self-proclaimed line of the DOJ being an uncontested authority, which constitutionally we believed was not the case. We detailed the reasons in the document. SAG responded and, asked us to meet up and discuss these matters and come to a resolution in line with their verdict.
Which hasn't happened.
What we're doing now, yeah. So,
Okay.
yep. So,
We were awaiting further direction from them, which unfortunately has been unable to occur. So.
yeah.
So I have been in
That's what we're
talks
here
with Governor Oil, thankfully.
Yeah.
Governor K. Oil. He's kind of waiting for a day that everybody's available to get together, and he wants to be given a time. I told him I'd give him a time and day to have like a mass meeting, basically, to go over that, to make sure that if you guys have any questions for him directly, or if he has anything he needs to get off his chest or anything like that, that can happen.
Okay.
This right now is more so I can get an understanding of where you're coming from and what your issues are. It sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that your issues are that changes were made. They were never the changes were never publicized, aside from like the government email chain, and then on top of that, they were a direct result of you asking for something that was effectively your right to ask for, and that it was changed to not be available to you.
The core issue, as detailed in the letter, is that the DOJ does not have uncontested legislative authority over all legislation. In other words,
and then things were changing while technically speaking they didn't have unregulated authority.
Exactly.
I got you.
And like due to some of the verbiage, so a good way to put it, and I don't want to paint this like super demonically. I'm trying to be as neutral with my opinion, even though, I may feel a certain way. Is we have effectively 4 branches of government, right, that have some levels of overlap. And I think due to the understandably undefined lines, where does something begin, where does it end, it's allowed for either the belief of or the actionable over encroaching of legislative changes, right? And
Okay.
so if we want to talk specifics, can the DOJ go and edit legislation right now if they so wish and enact it immediately? As we believe, no, and I think, and as it says in the letter, SAG agrees. Our general position is similar to the other branches, the medical, Blaine, and Los Santos County. If there is an alteration to FOIA or whatever it is, right, whatever piece of legislation it is, whether it's an edit, whether it's an introduction of new legislation, it similarly needs to go through the exact same process that we go through. It gets reviewed for constitutionality. It gets posted to City Hall. There's 3-day contest period, and then it goes from there.
So my understanding, and Hart or Arcadia can correct me. The way it should be working is it doesn't matter who the fuck you are, unless obviously you're Governor Oil himself.
Yeah.
If you create a legislation, or you want to create legislation, excuse me, you need to, like you just said, go through the same processes. Write it up, have it posted on the City Hall section of the website, put it in its contest phase. If it doesn't get contested, you post it. The only thing that would change for me, the only difference between like DOJ and you is that if we put in a legislation, it would be statewide federal. And if you put in one, it'd be countywide.
Correct.
Unless like you or Pred agree and then it becomes statewide.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the gist of it. As far as I'm aware, the ones that from what Angel has told me, and again, Hart can correct me because only us 3 have been in meetings.
Mm-hmm.
from what Angel has told me, what we were told in the very beginning was we had the authority to change legislation whenever you wanted. We didn't need the oversight. We were told we had the full authority to change it without having to go through the contest phase or anything. We didn't need to tell anybody. It wasn't until that letter came out that we had, like, you know, that things started changing, like with, you know, with you posting your stuff on the docket and us needing to go through the contest thing. That was our understanding. That's what we were told, and then it was changed up, and we weren't really prepared for it.
Yes,
So-
there were no concerns with it when the process was initially outlined. However, you know, as these things go, as they actually are implemented, we find holes in it. So it's absolutely fine to adjust now.
I absolutely agreed. You know, whether it was a communication breakdown, whether it was whatever it was, you know, as long as we can evolve the process so that whoever takes our places down the line has something better, I think is, you know, a good goal to have. So look,
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm aware,
I'm not going to bring
it
up
seems
what
like
Bailey
everybody's
told
on the
us.
same page
Yeah.
in terms of, or well, in this room, we're on the same page in terms of like how the legislative process should be. Obviously, the only checks and balances are that, or right now, is that if you guys put up a legislation at a county level, the judges are going to determine if it breaks, you know, any the current legislation or you know the Constitution or whatever. Which I did look at yours. I do have a couple questions because all of them had at least one question about how it was going to violate one or two amendments. So we can go over that here in a minute.
I think it's important for me to point out that I know Pred holds the position that we should just be able to post it and then legal repercussion can happen. I don't hold that position. That's the one area that we disagree on. I do think that there is value in the DOJ doing a constitutional review and, hey, like, is this crossing lines conversation? Because I think that is within your purview. And to be honest, why block up the judicial system with something that can be resolved in 10 minutes? Like a 10-minute
unfortunately,
conversation.
as much as I understand why Pred has that position,
Yeah.
the end all be all is it's the justices and judicial system's job to know the law, or at least have a very good understanding of it as best as possible,
Yeah.
and to review these things. Not every mayor or person in the mayor's cabinet that comes in is going to know everything about what they're trying to do. So it's kind of our job to
Agreed.
make sure we focus on the breaches of the violations of like legislation or the Constitution. With that being said, like I said, I do understand why he feels that he wants to do that. I understand that, like, as a mayor, you guys want authority over your county. You don't have to rely on other people to say yes, you can, or no, you can't. But at the end of the day, again, there might be something that, you know, somebody in your cabinet or you might miss on accident that you're obviously not meaning to.
Yeah.
That needs to be looked over just in case.
I do believe that I squashed some of his concerns. I do think that a lot of it, keep in mind, my cabinets went through the last 4 months, like dealing with stuff. So he's pushed legislation and seen none of it go through. And a lot of it is due to the mountain that we're trying to collapse right now. So I think once this process is resolved, I think the majority of the root cause of his concern is going to be out the window, and he's not going to see a problem anymore.
Okay, I mean, yeah, if that's not going to be an issue, then I don't see how there'd be any issues going forward. In all honesty, well, in terms of legislative processes and stuff.
There are some other things that I want to highlight when you're ready for it.
Sure.
Okay, so we're in agreement with the following the same process. In that document, we also notate a couple other things as to how to improve that process, particularly with transparency with the citizenry. And we discussed that briefly yesterday, right? So I don't want to lose sight of that, like talking about getting it into a certain tagged area of the MDT. So every Joe Schmo in the city, through the tools in the city, can go and review things that are in contest, right? Or posted up. Because the reality of the matter is 99% of people aren't going to go to the government website. And that sort of removes them. That very much removes them from the democratic conversation that I think benefits the city. Do you remember that conversation yesterday?
Yeah, vaguely. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only
we
reason I
just
say vaguely is because I was stuck between 2 court cases, so I was just kind
Yep.
of all over the place yesterday.
I can recap for everybody. It's today there's like Blaine County documents, Los Santos County documents, and I think one that says like Los Santos and Blaine County documents.
Oh, yeah. I
Yes.
remember us talking about that.
And so the idea that Hollow, myself, and many of the judges, and Pred included, were discussing is today, if someone wants to go and take a look at new legislation proposed by any one of the bodies, they have to go to City Hall and then know that it was even posted to begin with, right? Which means they need to be prompted by a conversation or like a state announcement, and then they got to look in it. And nobody does that. So instead, having a document drop down that is visible to the public downstairs, the judges, everybody, so you can see a proposed thing, you look at it, and you can read it, but any of the correspondence between the mayors, the DOJ, any contests would still happen at City Hall. So what we're talking about here is more public access to proposed legislation for people to review.
Essentially an MDT tag that allows people to read it but not write in the MDT, kind of like a public legislation, but it says under review or work in progress or whatever.
Yep.
And then the mayor's office, depending on whichever, like, you know, Blaine County or LS, they'll post it to the City Hall section on the website. That way people can contest it there, and it's a logged sheet.
Yep.
To say people are contesting it, and then go
Yep.
from there and just be like, hey, look at, you know, legislation report 129759 or whatever, and then if you want more information on it, and go from there.
Yes.
Personally, that's more like a formatting thing. I think it would just be a lot easier to read, because every time I go on the docket and I see the City Hall section and I see all that text, it's just really hard for me to pay attention.
It's bad for us too, because the formatting of the forum does not align with the MDT. So we end up taking a very rich Word document where everything's pretty, and then post it into there, and then post it back. And I genuinely believe something's going to get missed at some point. In fact, I think it already has. There's a piece of legislation that's half copied, but
HIPAA,
yeah. So, and I don't think that's anyone's fault. I mean, when you're copying and pasting between 3 different apps, like, it's bound to happen. So thank you, Michael.
No, that one is correct. I wrote that one myself. What do you allege is missing?
Michael?
I mean, it introduces implementation as a section, and then it goes right to signature. So I kind of assumed.
To be clear, this was in the very start of our
Yeah,
new
yeah,
government,
yeah.
where we were still forming the path forward for how legislation would be introduced. We did not exactly have a template back then.
Oh, that makes
are
sense.
A bit mismatched, yes.
Yeah.
The template was created to simplify things for all of us, so that we can more clearly understand the pieces of legislation brought to us, and that the legislation would make more sense to those reading it. But unfortunately, we were kind of still halfway through that process at the time.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in layman's terms real quick.
Yes.
Because I was talking to Arcadia about this actually earlier. I'm getting kind of annoyed with how sweaty, and you know, Youngin's terms, how sweaty like everything is being written, to where it's borderline impossible to understand unless you have an understanding of like actual law. We need to make shit a lot more like plain.
Especially if you're wishing to include the public to have a bigger conversation in this matter, it needs to be a bit more accessible.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about like all the state legislation that even like the justices put in for the most part, because all that shit, like, I should be able to see, how do I do a search warrant? You need 3 bullet points, and then that explains it. I don't need 15 different legalese terms to understand like what to do for a search warrant or whatever.
I think you are actually very much aligned with our opinion, which once you look at some of those audit things, you'll see where that alignment is.
Okay.
I think there's easily a balance, and I haven't seen that issue with a lot of them. But
can I rephrase what you said, Hollow? So, and let me know if you agree. It's not the verbiage; it's things should be simple so anyone looks at it and they know, okay, this is what the law is saying. And you're not having to juggle through college level words and grammar that the writer probably doesn't themselves have a good grasp of.
Isn't that verbiage?
You're doing great, Hallow. That would be ideal. People
Yeah.
deserve to know what their rights are and where the legislation falls.
Yeah.
Sometimes
No
it's
big
somewhat hard to
words.
figure it
Me
out.
no understand.
Hello, please.
All right.
Fair.
Oh my god.
No, that's a fair point. No, he brings a fair point.
He's
It
the
was, yeah.
diversity justice.
Me no
Yeah.
get haha. Me orc.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No stupid shit. Like people, not everybody
So
has a
diverse.
degree in legalese.
Yeah.
So diverse.
My
I'm so-
god.
This is great. This is beautiful.
So the next thing in here, contest period. So one, we've kind of, I think over the last 4 months had,
Sorry, which document are you looking at again?
it's
Like a
the
full
same
one?
one, the legislative proposal, the recommendation. So we went and wrote up our proposed, hey, we could, here's our recommended full document for how it can look like. So you open up the legislative proposal and approval process.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
So I'm going through the sections. So what when you look at this document, what we did is we spent about like 5 days working on this, and the first iteration was about 13 pages. I then threw the ruler on the table. I'm like, we need to simplify this, effectively take what exists and massage it in a way that makes sense for everybody and simplifies the process and adds more activity in the city. I've already discussed 2 of them, right? Making it clear where boundaries are jurisdictionally, and number 2, talking about having the stuff public. The third thing that we visited on this, which has been a major contention point, is when legislation was contested 3 months ago, it would be a judge receives 25 quote unquote verified signatures, which quite frankly, I don't even know what that means, or money, and says, we're contesting this for this reason. Originally, we, as the writers, didn't know who contested it and for what reason, which can lead to, let's just say, troll contesting, right? Because the bar is very low. Do we want to go troll the DOJ with this new legislation? Let's get 25 signatures, right? And immediately it would go up for vote. That's a huge problem because the writers, the people that put the work behind it, would, in our case, wake up to a vote without people voting based on the content of it, but voting based on what is rumor, right? So the second iteration of contesting, and I don't know when this changed, but I'd say I saw it in action about 6 weeks ago, is that when someone contested, now the contest reason would be displayed on the City Hall website. But once again, it's outside the view of the everyday voter. They, once again, don't know what they're voting on. You could write something called updated VAF legislation, and I could go around the city and just say, Hollow's trying to take everything with one VAF point, right? It may not be true, but that's how the voting occurs. There's no built-up period. What we are recommending very, very strongly is that the manner the contest works is if somebody contests, that a judge has an arbitration hearing, ideally within a 48-hour period. So if, let's say, Hollow, you introduce new legislation or alteration, and I contest it, we then present ourselves in a public hearing, similar to Congress. You make your advocation as to why it should exist. I make my advocation for why I'm contesting it. And then there's a 2-minute back and forth between the parties, right? I say, I disagree. Fuck you, Hollow. You come back. No, fuck you, Nino. These are the reasons. And then it ends. Either we, with the judge there, arbitrate the issue, because maybe I only had a problem with one sentence, not the entire document. Or if arbitration cannot be had, it goes up for vote. And now the entire city knows what it's about, So we're
Isn't
bringing
that
it
what
from
we
the
already do?
no.
No.
Because I've held a
It's-
few, or well, I guess that's how we do audits. Because I've already held 2
Yes.
audits for that exact thing.
That's an audit, not a
Yes,
contest.
that's
So, but
after
you
the
want the
fact.
same thing for a contest, like before
Correct.
legislation gets accepted. Okay, I got you.
Yes. What we
I don't see
experienced
why not.
was getting an email at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time while I was sitting back watching videos on Deadlock, and it said, "Bing, there's now a vote in City Hall for all 6 of the legislations you guys spent the last 2 weeks writing." So we had to wake up and start campaigning against lies. And it fucked a lot of people over, quite frankly. Yeah, we're saying, hey, let's do this in the city. Is kind of what we're getting at. I think that hits everything. Am I Michael? Can you keep me honest here?
Those are the big ones. The only other one that I think is worth mentioning is in Dr. Naya's instance, where, well, you know what, Naya, if you don't mind, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, so I posted a legislation about 2 days after I got elected for prescription marijuana, and was answered with a reply of like, this is not constitutional, and it was closed. No spot for clarification or anything.
Mhm.
It was, it seems like it was defined that it wasn't constitutional because it would be adding higher amount of weed that somebody could possess, and it was defined as contradicting the current weed legalization act. But the fact that it is prescription marijuana and not consumer marijuana means it in itself is an addition to the law. But mostly I couldn't do anything about it. That was the big part of it, is that was just closed.
I think that to clarify the concerns with that one, I believe the issue was that the legislation allowing for a legal personal amount of marijuana directly states that any amount over that would be illegal, whereas your legislation was overriding the rights that each county had to make that judgment, if that makes sense. So the concern was contradicting the rights of each of those. If we can find a middle ground to maybe adjust, or
I don't think,
adjust those.
Naya, if I may, I think
Yeah.
the issue isn't so much that it was, you know, that there was an issue with it, right? It was that a door was slammed in your face and you weren't able to argue your side.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly it was hard to like, I was trying to understand to see what it could do, because I did talk to Pratt and Nino before I put this law, and they were both in agreement. So if there was such a reply, I could have been like, okay, now I got Pratt and Nino's signature, and then hope, you know, that in itself should already fix, I guess, the issue, in my opinion. But it was mostly, yeah, that there was no space for communication.
Oh, well, we're happy to explain if you have further questions around it. My understanding, the closing was merely just that it contradicted the existing legislation, so the feedback was given, and you are welcome to resubmit when adjusted.
Do you have blood coming out of your mouth?
Yes, I do.
You okay?
She always she's a
great.
vampire.
Hello.
Anyway,
Ew.
she's it's normal.
Yeah.
I think that actually just the exact interaction that we just had is exactly underlying the issue where, you know, Dr. Naya said she was, you know, unable to have a conversation. Justice Hart said we can have a conversation. There could be readjustments and a resubmission, but you're looking for that avenue where that could have happened on the, whether it be on the docket or, like Neo's saying, within the city during the contest period, where it could be brought forth before judiciary. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
For the sake of everyone's sanity, is anyone in not agreement of that mentality? Why are we not doing it that way?
Would you have preferred that? So the constitutionality check is pretty much just a checkbox, a yes or no. There is no contest phase that it entered into. Would you prefer that we just reach out to you here as well?
Either that, or to be like, hey, it's not constitutional because of this. You have 2 days to like add or change something, or, you know, reach out in the city, one of the two, just some avenue for me to understand what has to be changed a little bit, better. Because there's lots of solutions, right? I could get the same exact legislation and get Pred and Nino's signature. Therefore, they would be okay with adding to the original Marijuana Act. Or it might have that we have to submit an amendment to their law that outlines that, prescription marijuana is an exception. So there's a few
Mm.
ways to solve that, and I think it's just communication.
Well, and
Yeah.
closing
We're
it,
always available for that. Yes.
closing it starts the 14-day timer as well, right?
Yeah.
So if it was rejected, she can't resubmit it under the current legislation for 14 days. So that kills momentum in whatever initiative she's trying to build.
Yeah, I think
In this case, prescription marijuana.
yeah, I
So
think
leaving the door a little bit more open where
Exactly.
that conversation could be
Sure.
had.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. And I think that's something that should happen at every stage of this process, right? Anything that's just a red light, green light process just doesn't leave enough room for things to be collaborated on.
yeah. I think
Sure. I think, from my understanding, that 14 days would have allowed enough time for that discussion, but so that it could be adjusted and created into something that fits everything. But if that's no longer how things work, we'll be happy to adjust. I can take a closer look.
I'm glad the 14 days was mentioned. We also recommended in this document 7 days as the pacing of this city demands that momentum for any effort, that momentum continues. And after 14 days, no one cares anymore. And so,
That's too true.
yeah. So
Any court case that has delays, no one cares by the time
I,
you get there.
I don't care after
1000%.
14 minutes.
yeah, yep.
All right.
And
What the hell?
so like what be it that legislation, I think it even just closing the door thing makes sense if like I'm like, hey, Nino Chavez is trying to make class 2s legal in Los Santos County or whatever, some like crazy shit, and you got to shut it down because you don't want us spamming the docket with the same thing. Makes sense, right? But that same button being used in this case, right? We need a different avenue. I think we all agree with that.
I think also the same thing, and I just thought of this, so I might be off topic. Going back just a tiny bit, like when it comes to contesting legislation, I'm not saying every legislation you guys bring up should be contested. I'm just saying that nobody knows when when something gets posted on the city hall website. So nobody knows when to go contest something.
Our staff actually, every single legislation that we've posted over the last 3 months, I make a state announcement when I wake up at 10 a.m., then after Tsunami, an hour in after the train gets through, and then again around 7 p.m. Eastern. So,
okay, so like some kind of notifications. I got you.
To be for the state, but not necessarily for us, and we're not always around. And I hate to beat this dead horse,
that's what
but
you
can
mean.
Yeah. If I'm to be working between DOJ and the mayor's office, I would very much like a thread in the email chain for us to be alerted when
Agreed.
legislation goes into place, and it will help expedite things exceptionally, just to make us get that notification. It's so simple.
Actually, you know what? I'll email, or I'll pray to Han real quick. Hang on.
Thank you.
We don't even
All
have
right.
justice's communication. That would be really nice.
Yeah, we have.
The fuck? You guys just have a group chat or something?
Yeah,
It's about as good as it gets, to be honest.
Yes, we just figure it out when we have to.
But again, like just a simple notification making us aware, because I do wake up and I try to look at City Hall's page every day. I'm human. It doesn't always happen. I'm sure I speak for the justices where that happens for them as well. We do the best we can. We have a lot, like Hallow said at the beginning of this meeting, we have 800 different documents flowing through our channels at all times. Things are falling through the cracks, and I think just we're all coming to a very equal conclusion that communication seems to be the failure here. So I think a pipeline might be a very great solution.
Yep, I absolutely agreed. I mean,
sorry, real quick, Dr. Naya, what's your title? Your full title?
San Andreas Medical Authority Director.
I thought you didn't understand big words. Hello.
Yep.
Are those too big for
He's
him?
learning.
Nothing more
Yeah.
than 3 syllables.
Okay.
So he got San, and that's about it. Really.
Yeah,
Andreas,
that's probably. Oh, all right. So,
Oh, yeah, thank you.
you
Medical.
say Andreas like it was an and in the middle.
The last bit that I'm going to point out that's in
Mhm.
this document is the verbiage that was used in the existing process document that seemingly infers that if two counties enact, like, both sign legislation, it becomes state legislation, but then can be altered without bounds during that transition period. So I'll give you an example. I'm describing this like shit, but let's say I've written something up, right, for weed.
Right.
And then Pred goes and signs it. It's inferring that now the justices can go and rewrite that as they please to make it state bound. Now, it also
Understood.
presents a secondary issue, which is if the next mayor decides that they want to unbind it as state law, we believe that is within their constitutional right to do so. And the third being that if the collective decide to alter something together, they should be able to do so. So I believe that these things are things that are already sort of very clearly noted in the Constitution based on my interpretation. But what we did is we sort of expanded, we kind of called that out specifically. Our goal with this document, once again, was to increase clarity on things, but also, we attached a second document, the 13-page one, which I believe you have, Hollow, as well as you, Grayson, in the event.
Yeah, I got it.
In the event there's any section in there where you're like, hey, I don't really get the thought process, you have like a appendix to, consult. So you don't gotta read it, but if there's
We'll
anything
go
in
over
there,
that one
like,
later. Hal.
yeah, you don't gotta read that one. That's like extra material in case you're like, what the fuck are they trying to do here? Like, why?
Amazing. I love fluff.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll read through it and everything. I mean, like I told you yesterday, nothing's gonna happen until it's brought up with all justices and we fully agree or don't agree or whatever.
Yeah.
It's of my opinion that things can be way simplified. I think things are super complicated right now. I don't think they need to be so complicated.
Agreed.
I think we could exacerbate a lot of these situations and these, issues, or not exacerbate the issues, but fix them. Oh, that was a 4-syllable word.
My God.
So proud. So
Thank you.
proud.
You're gonna have
Something
to
I
use a
think,
different one. That
Somebody
you
get him
lost
some
me
water.
already.
Speed up.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. From my point of view, Angel is basically she technically speaking wasn't, but Angel is basically leading the charge and all this kind of stuff. The only reason I wasn't paying attention before is because I just got back and I've only been paying attention to court
That's
cases
true. He
since I got back. I left for a hot minute. I really wish that a lot of these they just sound so complex. They don't need to be this complex. So is the legislative process, is that the only legislation that you guys are trying to scratch your heads at, or
No, we're not scratching our heads. We're saying
you're trying to get it changed. You're trying to work on it.
We're trying to keep a justice in a fucking lane. Like, if that's where this all stems from. So
So
yeah.
what are the other legislations, Michael?
The other audits.
Yeah, well, Michael said that there was what are the titles of the other legislations you guys are talking about?
I'll speak to that. So of some of of what led to this audit to begin with was the FOIA one, the powers of the marshals and the DOC, and the powers of law enforcement. And those are the first set that we tackled, as they were a response to what we believe to be they're a response to speculation as to what the mayors may or may not do. And in doing so are heavy breaches of constitutional rights across the board. So effectively, it leaves us with two options, right? After this process is done, and as per that letter, the question now comes into play that all these, what we can call shadow edits, were they even legal to begin with? And do each and every one of them get re-audited, or alternatively, they get reversed back and any alterations that are desirable go through the legal channels? So, in other words, we're saying option A, at the end of this resolution, do we revert those pieces of legislation and resubmit, or B, do the legislative branches go and audit each particular one? We're open to both of those, and we can have some of that conversation.
I feel like this is going to turn into me like reading through every legislation and like trying to figure out how to...
This has been our life the last 4 months, so we can we have everything indexed.
What
well.
if? And hear me out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Tyler.
What if we just say fuck it and start new again?
Yes.
Please shut the fuck up.
What?
I mean,
you don't want that either.
I think it'd be great, to be honest.
We'll just wipe
My
the slate
God, I
clean.
will
Get rid of
say-
everybody
I
in the
agree.
government.
I'm
Yeah.
in.
Dear God. Oh yes. All right. Perfect.
Yeah.
I will be
I will
sole
say, in
supreme
our
leader.
initial answers that we
I say
received
we just
from
all
the
get on a
state,
plane, we go to
They
an
did-
island, and we'll go along.
as
I
a
don't-
genuine answer, the state did confirm that we don't need to start from scratch on things. However, the process still exists to audit things. If there are concerns with changes that were made, you are welcome to audit those, and we can go through and readjust as needed.
Yeah, truthfully, I think there's only, I'd say, the ones that we sent, and probably only two more. So
Alright.
it's
Okay.
and
So just so I have this correct, we are talking
Mhm.
about, which is technically an audit of the Legislative Proposal and Approval Process Act, which is
Correct.
the one that we've been majoritarily talking about today.
Yeah.
The second one having to do with the audit of amendments to the Freedom of Information Act, having to do with FOIAs.
Mhm.
And the third having to do the formal legislative audit of the San Andreas State Marshals and Correctional Officers
Correct.
Act, and powers and definitions of law enforcement officers. That is entirely what we're talking about right now, not what is on the docket yet.
correct. Yes.
Hey, what
So
version
that
of
is
the
what I have just
Constitution are
given
we
to
on?
both of the justices.
There's
right?
only one. There's been no amendments.
Constitution hasn't been changed. No.
Is this the only Constitution we've ever had?
Okay. No,
Yeah.
that. Who knows?
So we're.
I
I don't
Okay.
know how much the old one was changed.
I'm just
but
thinking.
this.
Never mind. I'm not gonna make that
iteration,
joke.
we
Actually,
acknowledge this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna cut myself off on that. one.
For the sake of the justices, I would say, I mean, obviously they have to vote with Angel, but these are the three things that they will be focusing on, maybe for the meantime, and then give them maybe a week. Hopefully, they can get the votes done. Not even a full week, just until like Friday. We can talk maybe at the end of the week. We could probably get Angel to vote on them by then, and
Yeah.
then we can move into talking about the new legislation by next week. Is that
So
possible?
Angel is on a leave of absence currently, but we'll do
Yes.
our best to
Yeah.
gather
So-
all feedback. Myself and Hallow can take a closer look and do our best with it.
So I'm going to ask a question here, because this is what didn't. So the original audit that we did, my understanding, and some of this is speculation, is that it went to state officials as a consequence of the justices being conflicted. In turn, these ones that we've audited would infer that you're also conflicted, meaning it would go to state officials again. And therefore, that's kind of why I recommended there is that option where we say, of these things that there is large contention of, it may be simpler to revert and re-push. Now, I don't want to push you guys either way, but I'm just giving you the context of why we even suggested it in the first place. Because the FOIA one has all y'all's signature on it, and same with the Angel one.
Just to get a quick grasp, a super quick TLDR, just to make sure we're not getting confused.
Yeah.
Especially me. In regards to the legislative process, you want to basically simplify it. You want it so the judges can't just do whatever the fuck they want and have to go through the same process as everybody else.
Yep.
The contest period, obviously the judges would have to go through the contest period as well. You and Dr. Naya both want there to be some sort of discussion period instead of being outright told not constitutional by and then ending it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you want an arbitration. So like if somebody contests it, then there's an actual hearing and not just we're contesting it. Okay, it's not going to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, Nino?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Everything's in that document we sent you, the 3-page one.
Yeah, I'm just making sure I got it all.
Yep.
I'm just making some spark notes. I think it's the point.
Okay. Did I miss something? I feel like I'm missing something. I'm looking through the documents again. I need to go through the FOIA because you want to audit the FOIA legislation.
Yeah.
And then I need to go through the PD Leos, or sorry, Hart and I need to go through those because you want to audit that as well.
Yep. Those
Okay.
are the ones that there's over encroaching out of jurisdiction shit happening.
Okay.
We also discussed a change on the constitutionality check. Did we come to an agreement on how we'd prefer that be? Like a time period for response?
Like the 1 to 2 week thing?
I believe there was
currently 14 days on the it starts the cooldown. Just
I think there needs to be like instead of saying I don't know. I feel because
kind of like it opens it up to 3 days where the person can adjust the legislation to fit.
Yeah, 2 or 3 days, and then after that period, if it's still denied, you can go into the 14-day period.
All right.
I mean, kind of the same mind of Hart, as she said earlier, where like the 14-day period is where you have those discussions to have it changed.
I can see how that is an extensive period of time.
Yeah, it's a long
So why don't
that
we
isn't
do
what we've
this?
seen in practice, though. Just to make sure we're on the same page, the 14 days to resubmit, or because I think what Dr. Nye was saying is the concern was it closes immediately, so there is no mechanism to resubmit legally.
After 14 days, there is, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is a long time, and most of the time, then it does just slow things down quite a bit, you know.
Sure.
Because I did try, since Angel was the one who deemed it unconstitutional, I did try to reach out to her during the following week after that happened to try to get a proper clarification on, you know, what she deemed was best, and it was just I wasn't successful.
You know what? I actually agree with the 3-day thing. Like we say, this is unconstitutional. Reach out to a justice when available, and we can discuss it.
Like
and then that way,
to fix it.
Yep, that way, like we can bring up our concerns, and you guys can be like, "Well, this is why we did this," and then you might like end up either changing our mind or like we'll understand it better than we did before about how you guys want to do it. And then if we still deny it, then you guys will have the 1 to 2 week period once we decide on that one.
Sounds good.
Would we also give the grace of those 3 days for the legislation to be adjusted, or is this just a point
they can adjust it during that 3 days.
Yeah. Great, so I'll make sure that's written.
Yes, I think that makes sense.
That way, like the discussions can happen. We don't just shut the thread or whatever as soon as it goes up, or not the thread, sorry, the posting on the government website as soon as it goes up. And then, you know, if it's still not good after the 3 days or after the discussions we have, then they can use the 2 weeks to rewrite it or come up with something new.
Sure.
Agree.
Because sometimes it might be a very
Mm.
simple, nitpicky wording issue. To be
I'm-
honest. That's just unfortunately how these things go when it's lightly contradictory,
Yeah,
and that's
I
really
mean-
all it was in this case as well.
I mean, like I said, I'm not one to shy away from saying I'm wrong when I'm wrong. I mean, if I give a decision on something and somebody says, "Well, what about this?" and I'm like, "Okay, that actually makes sense," I'll revert my decision. I'll do it. I don't give a
Yeah.
shit.
Mhm.
So I'm cool with that. We'll have to talk to Angel before that's set in stone, but I'm cool with it.
Okay. Can I ask generally, like, this discussion's been very fruitful. Has there been, you guys have any pushback for anything that we're suggesting here?
Do we
Not
have
really.
like, are we against
Pushback.
anything you're suggesting?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm against the whole thing.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not pro-government in general.
I don't think
to be
you
honest.
understand that. First of all, politics fucking suck. Okay, I just want-
absolutely.
I want full power and
Yeah.
no
Hello.
fucking
Mhm.
cutback.
My
Okay,
God.
I'm
Yeah.
sick of
We've been
this.
getting so much
Stop
good
getting
work
in my
here.
way.
No.
I want it. I want the power.
Are you gonna stand here and fucking explain to me how shitty politics is? You know how many fucking hours I've invested into Los Santos County? Not for my own fucking gain. I barely get paid. I get paid $1,500 an hour to listen to people
My God.
cry and
I saw him
bitch
doing
and,
G6 this
and
morning.
wait and whatever. And then all of a sudden wait 3 fucking weeks because an email got fucking clogged up somewhere.
Right.
I feel like a fucking volcano inside. And then I got Tilly bitching in my fucking ear 24/7.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's
Sounds amazing.
Damn.
that's a
I can.
choice.
I don't. I can't hear in
Oh, she's
stereo
awake back there.
anymore.
Hi.
doing?
Power.
But no, in general, I think we're all aware
Yeah.
that when we created an entirely new governmental system, there were going to be things that we would have to adjust.
Yeah.
We did our best to account for that, but
Why don't
there's
we-
going to be places where we've missed our mark. So
Why don't we
Yeah.
just have a
Happy to.
council?
adjust.
I am.
I'm walking out. I'm done. I'm leaving.
Like, listen,
Federal-
me.
it wouldn't be a
memes-
city. No. It wouldn't be a city. It'd be a
Yeah.
federal council.
A federal council. Memes aside, there was, and I want to highlight this because not everyone was here. Hollow was there. Grayson was there yesterday. I think that for far too long, there hasn't been enough. We've gotten so used to posting shit on the city hall bullshit, and instead of, we should be meeting once a week.
I agree.
Because if there is a problem, like, I fucking hate the hospital, Dr. Naya. What the fuck are you doing? You know, we can
Me
talk
too,
about
fuck
that
you.
here, and
Seems kinda
everyone can
nice.
hear it, and maybe we can come
feel
to a
targeted.
resolution, right? And even and whatever, like, at least that constant communication is a good thing, and those little holes can be evolved on, even if there's small fucking topics. Or we meet up for 15 minutes. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And
And
I-
that was the idea too. When the three of us got elected, we literally mentioned that that we wanted to do a meeting like this on a weekly basis.
yeah,
Just
yeah. So
Well, it looks like I will begin attempting to schedule that. I know we spoke of
Please,
it
yes.
potentially being bi-weekly at minimum.
listen, I'm down for every week. To be honest, this
But
is
yeah,
like
I think
great time.
if the people can do every week, I will work to make sure that is scheduled.
hell yeah.
But I know,
I'll do my best.
yeah, it's gonna be a bi-weekly at minimum kind of mentality.
Well, I have no life, so I guess I'll be here.
Oh, proud of you.
I have slightly
Um,
more of a life now, but I will do my best at every turn.
Thank you.
I got questions about y'all's legislation you wanted to put on the docket, by the way.
Wait, which legislation?
The one on the city hall portion of the docket.
You mean ones
Like the
that we
6 that have been
posted up?
sitting there. Yeah, the ones that have been sitting there for like a month that haven't touched.
Oh, yeah. I'm pulling it up right now. Which ones?
Management of kiosk and e-market.
Oh, the
For e-commerce
mall.
transaction.
Oh my God, that is going to be the biggest. It's going to bring in immigration.
Yeah,
like
I'm denying
crazy.
that.
Wait, why?
I'm just fucking with you.
I will literally. You have no idea how calm I've been through this, only because I'm seeing you for the first time, Hollow. All right. Like, I used to
Setting him
laugh.
off.
Jokes were good. Like, I enjoyed jokes many weeks ago, and then I was forced
so-
to be mayor again for a second time.
What do you mean forced, bitch?
I
You
do not
ran.
envy you.
I don't think you understand how much Sag
No,
farming.
he was forced.
Yeah.
I ran that election. He was
Yeah.
forced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so my first question, and your cabinet can answer it as well if they want to, since I'm sure one of them wrote this. First of all, what's a digital bazaar? I googled it and I couldn't find anything on it besides some freaking
it's the
restaurant
name we're
in
giving it.
Southeast Africa.
No,
Okay.
it's the
Shit
name we're
online.
giving it.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah,
good.
all it
the,
is,
the
okay.
digital bazaar. Well, it's a little more than that. So the mall, which we're looking for custom construction over at the Court Center, we're gonna have like it's you can place furniture. There'll be the Amazon state-backed one where we buy everything up to a certain volume. But so anything you need, whether it's wood or whether it's car parts, there's always be a stock of it. But there's going to be stalls as well. So people that can't get a place want to go sell in a common location, they can sell it there. But then the digital hub allows you to make those e-commerce. Let's say Grayson is selling some joints, right? And
But you better fucking talk to him right now.
no one is
What do you
around.
mean? I own a dispensary.
Does he own a dispensary?
No, Grayson.
Her
My last name is
as
Grayson.
well.
Oh, this one. Oh,
Fuck Christ.
The far more attractive.
Yeah.
Grayson.
Thank you.
And let's say no one else is open or whatever, she may have sold some to sell on. We can sell on her behalf when she's not around, and someone needs joints in the city. So you're going to be able to make those online purchases and pick it up from the box.
wouldn't that mean that you would need a dispensary license?
I think that was
Okay,
just
let's
for the
not say
sake of the
dispensary.
argument,
Yeah, for sake of argument, yes, that is actually technically true. Let's say she's
Okay.
selling car parts, right?
Smart.
Right.
But the
Gotcha, okay.
secondary thing is we are going to have a crypto-backed wallet as well. So, be it the various cryptocurrencies as well as the Los Santos coin, which we have an entire platform for that is ready to go. So, be it bet, be it butt, be it dick, be it cock, be it all these different coins. You can not only make purchases from them, but you can invest money into that crypto bank that you will see anyone can FOIA the transactions for, but it is going to have compounded interest. So,
Okay, so that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
That being said, I would probably mention that you can't just sell whatever you want off of that website. The joint thing you mentioned. Like if somebody wants to
it'd
put
have
their
to be
dispensary
legal.
up on it, it has to come from. Like if somebody wants joints, the state can't buy the joints and sell them. They would have to come from the actual dispensary. Or whatever.
Yes, that is true.
And then I'm quoting the document. In lieu of a business license, vendors may be issued a vendor's permit. The price and issuing of the permit falls under the responsibility of the mayor's office.
Yep.
I looked at the Big PP Act, and it says that if someone doesn't have specifically a business license, then they'll be charged and fined. So something needs to be rewritten in one of those that says like a permit is allowed under the Big PP Act and under your new one.
Let me take a look just real quick.
Yeah, because in the Big PP one, it says something about like you don't have a license and you're working a business or whatever, then like even at the food court, if you're working a stall without a license, you're going to be fined and charged for it.
Starting
But
at
in this
12,
new
all
one,
businesses operating with a license will be deemed non-compliant, unlawful, and is subject to penalty. The grace
Yep.
period is being offered.
Yep. So I would.
Yeah, but that's if you are operating a registered business in Los Santos.
Right, but you're saying here that you can do that without in your new one. You're saying you can do it without a license as long as you have a permit. And
Okay.
I'm saying you should probably add the permit part to the
I
the Big
see.
PP one.
Yeah.
Just in case.
I'll
that kinda
review this.
conflicts.
I think you're right about that. Yeah.
Yeah, those conflict a little bit because a permit isn't the same as like having a full-on business. So, the Nom Nom Act, my only one I had with that one. Thank you. That was his, but yeah. Just make sure that like it's noted that stalls aren't bought; they are rented for I think like a week at a time, right?
Okay.
So we need to make sure you guys need to make sure the verbiage is correct and saying, and such as like, as much as I want things to be simple, the legality behind buying and renting are very different, and it's basically allowing you guys to full on own that stall forever, and we can't have that for whenever other people are going to be able to rent it.
If I may, I don't know what the specific time period is, whether it's weekly or a choice, but
Okay.
in effect, it's a rental or a lease agreement with the property
Until the end of the lease.
until the end of the lease. And
Okay,
the
okay.
legislation would authorize the mayor's office to buy out the lease, not buy out the property.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
The Discretionary Spending Authorization Act, the state can't spend more than 10%. 10% is a lot.
Yeah. But we got to notate it. So, we go spend $50 million on, back massages or something like that. It's all available for FOIA,
And I think we were also told that we could do this in lieu of legislation as long as we had internal guidelines written for it.
Yeah.
To be clear, we were told that by a
All right, I was
justice.
pulling it back up. Yeah, I guess like my concern was, I'm not saying this would be coming from you, I'm saying in general, my concern would be like 10% is a lot in terms of, like you said, like if somehow the state has $500 million in the bank and they're like,
we almost
this
do, actually.
damn it.
No one's requesting money. We did too good with our budgeting. I don't know what to do.
If I may, 50 million right now is, I think, currently closer to about 20% of the state budget, but it also allows for the fact that if we do ever have a budget that's down bad in future administrations, like, you don't want to handicap those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But like, let's say 50 mil is the 10%, right? And
Yeah.
you give 50 million to like any one, not person, but like any one entity, that's a lot of fucking money.
it is.
It is.
So look at it. We looked at it from a different lens because this is you make a fair point, and we went back and forth with this. Originally, we wanted to put a $sign to it. The reality of the matter is that the economy changes literally month to month.
That's actually a good point. Yeah.
And as a consequence of not going back and forth, we said 10% is reasonable for massive purchases. To give you an example, we may be spending a couple tens of millions of dollars for the newly built aircraft hangar and the helicopters we're going to be purchasing.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
So
I'd like to mention something, if I
Yeah.
may. And I'm glad you brought this up, Hallow. The tools already exist for the judiciary and the legal branches to deal with any instances of unlawfulness tied to a $sign with discretionary spending. Like if Nino were to be embezzling funds, for instance. It's not so much that I personally don't think you should have an issue with the law because you have the tools you need to police. Do you understand what I mean?
yeah,
that makes sense to me.
yeah.
So this was something that I think I took issue with, particularly with Dr. Naya's marijuana legislation. It wasn't that it was unconstitutional. It was in the justice's opinion that it conflicted with county level legislation. But I don't think that determination is really supposed to be in the purview of the justices. If
Right.
if the tools thereby already exist to police, right?
Okay. So, Michael, my final
That's-
question for you. Oh, go ahead.
Please, yeah.
With that specific example, I think since it is written into the Constitution that each county has those rights to determine how things are handled, I think that's where it gets slightly complicated. But
Sure.
you're right. But also it kind of hits the Constitution. It's a weird, it's a
But-
weird gray area.
This is just an actual question. I'm just legit curious. Wouldn't
Sure,
then,
of course.
as the San Andreas Medical Authority, a state authority, wouldn't it kind of not matter? Because that would be, implementing a law on state necessarily. If that's an actual, just-
There were always going to be conflicts in where legislation lies, unfortunately, considering that there are two different bodies that handle things somewhat statewide, as well as two mayors for each county. So figuring out exactly where that line is something we still haven't quite done. So honestly, it's a good question, and we can do more to figure out where that line is.
So, Hallow, you said you had a question.
I think it went over the 12-minute. What was it? 12-minute mark?
It's-
Oh.
Jingle keys,
It's
jingle
14
keys.
seconds.
14 minutes. Thank you very much. And I was reading an email.
Yeah.
So, and I might have missed it when I read over this, but what's keeping you guys from doing 10%, but multiple transactions of 10%?
I don't think anything prevents
Uh-huh.
us today from me pulling out, I think, $250 million and just transferring it to the LSPD. We could do it.
That's a very
But-
good point.
Don't you
and
have to?
it's-
Isn't Pred going through the same thing where he pulled out money that he wasn't supposed to because he didn't have
No.
a
No.
like
Wait, what the fuck? Hollow, no. There was a weed thing inside. That's why there's a sanction on it.
Yeah, but part of it was they asked him not to have any access to the Blaine County funds because he pulled out money like without the
Yeah, because it was for
fund
an
thing.
illegal weed warehouse, not because
But
he pulled money
was
out.
right. He was in his right to do that if he was just buying a
Yeah.
property for the county.
Right, but what I'm saying is and like I said, I could be misremembering.
Yeah.
But they brought up that he brought it out without having like somebody specifically in charge of that, which they had to put on the dock later on.
Oh,
that
yeah,
is
that's
because
right.
Blaine County legislation specifically calls out the need for a treasurer that does the signing.
Right.
In the form of a guideline, by the way.
So
Okay, so you guys don't need a treasurer. He does.
yes, I'm
Okay.
actually. What we're doing is we're saying we're actually putting every single dime I've spent. I very intentionally write legislation for. Why? Because I'm setting the groundwork for the next mayor. So it may seem like we write a bunch of shit, but it's because we're putting guidelines and legislation to make sure that money is being used appropriately. And
Okay.
but in this case, we're saying, hey, there are one-off cases where we need to just like go buy turbos for the PD, as just spitballing an example, and we should be able to say, okay, they need this today. We can't wait potentially 2 months for legislation for PD turbo legislation. So that should be there. But if we do that, it needs to be heavily documented at the level of legislation. Like, right? Like, we'll write up like a fucking press release and
Is that
Make sure
just
so.
for like your own record keeping? Because you wouldn't even need to do that, would you? That'd be constitutional for you to bring that out for the safety of the people.
we don't, but my cabinet believes in not just transparency, but accountability, and getting that accountability in the event we are asked for it.
Okay.
So you should see our email chains. It's if you think you guys go through a lot of shit, you'd be surprised.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Look over that the big PP and the Market Act thing, and
Okay.
then Hart and I will talk about the other two to see if we're good to let those go forward on the legislation thing. I don't want to accept any of Pred's yet because I want to have a conversation with him because I have questions about his as well.
Okay, easy. We can get something updated by tomorrow morning, and I'll send you an email once it is done. So, we don't have to hope that there's like notification emails sent or whatever.
Yeah, you can just email.
Yes.
Yeah, that goes for anybody
You can
here.
do the
If
same
there's
thing.
if you guys put something on the City Hall website, just email me or Hart so we at least know
Absolutely.
about it. Because I'm not going to sit there and like have it
Oh,
up on
God,
my
Tilly.
Oh,
phone
Tilly.
24/7.
Oh no. Yes, we're both always available.
Yeah.
Hello.
Why are you
Rich
laughing?
for
That's
that.
because he
I
saw
got it.
Tilly. Can I also ask, because it seems like we're coming kind of to a wrap up point, what is the best
Thank
day? And I imagine, Nino, you'll want your cabinet there for these meetings, for everyone to meet during the work week. I think work week would be better, especially when it comes to like if we need to invite PD into meetings. Most
Yep.
of them operate more on the weekday kind of schedule.
I can't grab you. You're stuck.
It's all right.
I am open to whatever. I do, unless I'm mistaken, I think the open question still is based on how we conclude on this process document. Are we reverting and reposting or auditing each and every piece? I don't want to prescribe which of the two because it's the same for us.
Oh, that's right.
But I recognize
say-
that the second option of auditing everything, I genuinely believe, is way more work.
It's more work, but I think legally speaking, it would be a lot more productive to have them audited. So that way it's heard out and people like actual changes can be made from it.
I kind of agree. Who
Yeah.
knows that there won't be issues with whatever we end up.
Realistically
Well-
speaking, you're just
doing.
posting the same thing that's written on these documents into the docket and just saying we're auditing this.
I'll give you an example of why that might not be the case. Given the fact that there was a change to the FOIA Act as a reaction to a sitting mayor posting asking for his FOIA, and then the situation that happened afterwards, and based on the conclusion of the state officials, the alteration of that legislation was inherently illegal, and therefore its standing in its current state is inappropriate. So we would have to effectively say, okay, we're going to, you see where I'm going with this?
Are you saying it would take too long to do an audit?
I think auditing each and every piece of legislation, having conversations surrounding them, would be significantly more work than removing the small paragraphs that were added to each one of these documents and opening up what are we trying to solve? Are they even necessary to begin with? You know what I mean?
To be clear here, the state heavily implied to us, will officially stated at some point that none of our legislation would be voided, as they were written and uncontested and were not an issue.
Oh, as
at
a
that point.
part of the SAG document?
No, that's to us when we clarified the questions. Because we had the same concern, right? That this might mean that we had to go back.
Oh,
were informed that it does
gotcha.
not.
Okay. Okay. And I'm cool
we
with
can,
that.
however, look at them if you did have an issue with any of them. Of course,
Yeah. Yeah. And,
which
okay.
is where the need to audit comes in.
okay. So just for clarity, after the SAG document came out, y'all asked the state officials, hey, does that mean all our shit gets thrown out?
Mhm.
And they said, no, we'll keep them as they are, but we will audit them specifically.
It can still
the
be contested,
concerns.
like audited at a later date.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Like
Which
I
is
said,
why-
I'm
Yes,
open
they
for
stated that
either.
it would not void
That's
it.
why. That's why. Like
Yeah.
I recommended auditing because one, like legally speaking, it'd be the best way to do it. And as far as I'm aware, I definitely am not going to make any promises, but I can get in contact with Governor K. Oil and see if he's willing to hear the audit himself to see if he wants to make the change to a federal legislation.
Sure.
I think that would be productive. I mean, if he's going to attend this meeting anyways, from the sound of it,
That would be.
I think that would make so much clarity for all of this anyways.
Got it.
We're talking about a couple lines, not the entire legislation anyways, right? And we could probably conclude on it at a meeting like this.
No, absolutely. I'm still perfectly happy for us to look through them. But an audit may be necessary in that regard, since they are considered to not be void.
Hell yeah. All right, hell yeah. I'm still a little
right.
shocked there hasn't been any pushback. Like, you guys don't see any problems with what we're pushing forward, like, at all? Anything we
I
should
don't think
consider?
I've already
pushing
explained
for
my problems.
Clarification's ever really a bad thing.
Yeah.
We might not agree entirely with how to solve the issues that have arisen, and we will figure that out together in our discussions. But I don't
Okay.
think it's ever a problem to hear it out and do our best to adjust.
Okay.
I think I think it's a bit misunderstood. I'm here to understand your side and to hear you out,
Yeah.
so you don't feel like it's going on deaf ears, and then things like changes can, like the wheels can start turning and changes can start being made.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not here to say no, it's not happening and shut it down.
Yeah, we've
You sound like an abused child that's like used to being beaten.
Oh my god.
Okay. Well, shit. Are you mad at me? Hello?
Do you want him to be mad at you, Nino?
Everybody
Oh my-
thinks I'm mad
my
at
God.
them. I'm
Well,
never
no,
mad.
What is going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not used to
Already delayed
productive
the
meetings like this. This is good. That's why
I
I'm
mean,
being
I hate,
cautious.
I
You're
don't.
gonna
It's not
talk
that I hate
shit once we
wasting my
leave?
time. I talk shit behind everybody's back when I leave.
Oh my god.
It's
You're
not that I
not.
hate
That's true.
like wasting my
Real
time. I
intro.
don't mind sitting in these meetings. I think it's more so I hate when we sit in meetings for a reason and then nothing happens and we just talk in circles.
Oh, that pisses me off. I think every meeting should follow up with action items, quite frankly.
Yeah. So
yeah.
just to be clear, my oh my god, Arcadia here is going to be liaisoning between the mayor's offices and the justices. She has volunteered for it, and she seems to be good at it. So I'm gonna ask her to stay there. I'm not gonna force her to, but whatever. She's already written down all the legislation that you want to audit. I will go through them personally. Hart and I will talk about them at some point within the next day or two.
Mm.
And then we can go through that. All I ask is that you guys work on your Market Act and the big PP confliction thing, and then her and I will also talk about the 2 legislations that are on the docket to determine if they're good to go into contest phase or not.
Okay, beautiful. Love it. Is there anything that you have to ask of us? Anything in general while we're all here?
I am going to be straight up. The only pushback, actually, I do have pushback. The only I'm not a huge fan of this the money spending act that you guys are doing.
I'm down for some recommendations around it.
I just don't like that there's no checks and balances for you guys. I understand that we can go in and we can pull your bank records whenever we want from the mayor's office.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like that you guys can literally pull out 10% over and over and over and over again. There's no cap besides the no more than 10% at a time.
You want a line? Okay, so you want a line in there that prevents. Let me see. Is Michael? Remind me. Isn't that inferred in the document?
Good question.
10% is a lot. I can understand that. I also understand why you guys want to do that, because there might be some really massive purchases you guys need to do, and you guys are keeping really good documentation of it, or at least you're claiming to be. Not saying you won't. I'm just saying in general.
Let me. Can I recommend something? And I can. What I think the root cause of this concern is. I believe that every branch of government, including the DOJ, has the ability to spend money out of their banks, but there is no body that handles looking through transactions and flagging it. And instead, just as much as let's say you decided to go buy 20 tanks tomorrow, right? And we're like, what the fuck?
God, that's so tempting.
You know what I mean? We would only know if you pulled the tanks out. In the same vein, if I went and bought a mansion, right, and was holding potties, for the last 2 months, you wouldn't know until you heard about it.
Very specific.
There should be somebody that does it on the regular anyways. And I think part of that problem is that today, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Mr. Simone Industries, we worked with him 5 weeks ago now, who has resolved exporting of things, and if we gave it to fucking Glenn or some shit, he could flag this up to all parties. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
amazing man. You'll finally get Rebecca back.
Yeah, because
realistically speaking, the marshals would be investigating that stuff. If they feel that there's anything shady going on, they would be the ones to look into it. But you are right, we don't have anybody that actively pulls the records to look at them once in a while.
I don't think it's just the marshals though, because the thing is, the marshals can go fucking investigate whatever the fuck they want, but if citizen Bobby Smith learns that Nino Chavez just bought a mansion, he should have the right to fucking bring Los Santos County to court over it, right? It's his tax money being misappropriated. You get what I'm saying?
If I could add, there is state level legislation on legislative authority bank accounts. I think that might be the more appropriate place to, add something like a cap.
Yeah.
At a federal level?
Well, that legislation effectively says that the mayor can spend the money however he sees fit. So what I'm saying is there's not really, number one, there's not a need for the county level legislation in the first place, other than us wanting to put in checks and balances.
Yeah. Can I reword what you're saying, Michael?
Please.
The way that we look at it is like this. There's 2 counties, right? They got bank accounts. It is the people that need to hold their elected officials, appropriately, like, making sure that they're spending money appropriately. And as of today, every single individual has the ability to request a FOIA from any one of us. Or not a FOIA, actually a FOIA of a bank account. It's just
So-
nobody does it.
You can, answer me honestly. I might be the only one that thinks this. Is it just me, or does it kind of feel like the everyday person just doesn't give a fuck about what the mayor's office is spending their money on? Like, I feel like if you were walking down the street
Can
and you
I-
pulled out a Lamborghini,
Yeah.
any random Joe Schmo would be like, "Oh shit, okay, well he's the mayor. He just owns a Lamborghini. It is what it is." I don't feel like anybody would actually say anything about it.
I think, Hollow, never mind. I'm not going to say it.
May I
Yeah.
tackle this one? Maybe
You want me to
False.
say it?
Is it gonna hurt my feelings? Because I am sensitive.
The amount of people that wanted to take arms out of grievances on behalf of Los Santos mayor's office, you'd be shocked. And so I don't think they'd give a fuck if I drove around in a $100 million vehicle. But, and, at the end of the day, this is San Andreas, right? So the cleaner you are, the more in danger you are. So,
actually a
yeah,
good
of
point.
course people aren't going to care. If I walked around
God, I
with a
hope I
fucking
heard that was your argument.
AK-47, yeah, it'd be wild. But, but I do think people care. It's just, and I hope you understand this, right? This is not me exaggerating. A lot of people have been giving up due to the red tape, right?
It's
Because
understandable.
and I think the
Or the
beauty of
backlash,
this
yeah.
conversation is how do we simplify so that when any one of the branches wants to do something to uplift the populace, we can do so quicker with a little bit more trust. And if trust is believed to be broken, we have a system to say, what the fuck is that guy doing? Let me take a look at the bank account, as opposed to putting more, having more barriers in place. You know what I mean?
Can I play a little bit of a devil's advocate here? Because there's two sides to this
Can I-
coin.
Yeah, yeah,
While
Can I
you
hear
100%.
might have a
Dr.
very-
Naya's thing first? Because she was trying
Oh.
to say something a second ago.
Yep.
Oh,
It was Maeve, I thought.
Yeah.
Was it Maeve?
Yeah, it was Maeve.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry,
but-
Maeve.
I mean, no, if you also have something to say, feel free to go ahead.
No, go Maeve. Mine is
Um,
unrelated.
So I have been in the city for 9 months now as an entirely legal civilian. I've never done crime. I'm not part of any gangs. I have never done that. And I would say that, to be quite honest, I think people do care what the government is doing, but I think it tracks back to what Nino was just saying, is that much of it is either not easily accessible. It is very deep in, like Hollow, like you said earlier, in big words and sweaty legislation. It's not always transparent or easy to find. It's not always communicated in a way that is widely available across different platforms or time zones or whatever it may be. Government and politics and public service and things are just kind of largely inaccessible for the everyday person to have full access to without extreme effort. It's not always a lack of care, although for some people that is certainly true, but rather that it just isn't clear.
Yeah.
Like, clear what's available to us or how we access to it, or what is even like its contents. For instance, in the election where we had, the mayors being elected, there was legislation that was up for vote. And on the ballots, it just said the title of the act and nothing else. And if you didn't know where to find that information, you were just casting votes on legislation you didn't even know what it was.
Yeah. Arcadia? Oh,
Was that not what we did? We talked about that earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
It was mentioned
okay.
as an example of someone saying, well, changes to VAF legislation, and then that's an exact example that brought up something similar to Nino before. Like, these are things that have happened in the past in varying degrees.
I gotcha.
I was promised communism with our last president. Where is it?
That's a good question.
I think Maeve's point kind of also goes a little bit hand in my own of this duality that I'm a little fearful of what Hallow is saying, where, yes, you are right, there needs to be a level of trust, and we do have the tools in place to look into it, like Michael has said. However, while that trust might be there for now, we do have to still have the forethought of looking at further administrations, and where that might be heading. So I
Yeah.
think we're just all, especially in the DOJ, being cautious and self-aware of
Mm,
putting in the correct guidelines. It doesn't have to be
true.
barricades, but just guidelines at least.
Yeah.
Um, because there is not the oversight infrastructure that we're needing to be able to have the trust I think everyone is asking for.
Is there's kind of two philosophies, right? And I know I'm about to get philosophical. There's a lot of things you can do in San Andreas. Some that are going to come with repercussion, some which you're going to be able to get away with. And then there's vanilla, right? Hypothetically, if when another mayor takes the place of, our place in Los Santos County, and let's say that individual goes and does some crazy shit with the money. Good. That's we get to experience 2 weeks of a shit show. You know what I mean? As opposed to that option not existing and things being very perfect, and you understand what I'm saying? Like, if someone does some fucking wild shit, yeah, perfect. All right, good. If Kyle Pred decides that he goes and buys like an entire armory of AK-47s with misappropriated funds, fantastic. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Then I think it's
It's a great quote.
I feel like it's what him buying an
It's a
armory.
great quote.
It's like,
Yes, just the fantastic write-up.
it is. We shouldn't be afraid of things happening, and that I think reacting to what happens is healthier than worrying about what could happen, and in doing so, potentially stopping some very potentially great moments in Los Santos. You know what I mean?
I tend to agree. That was the intention behind impeachments and authority conduct reviews being more common.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they have not been as common as we intended for.
Mm.
The plan was more so that there would be more freedom, so that if someone mishandled it, there was that path forward.
Yeah.
But I think people are scared to do it, so we've gone back to our ways of trying to
Yeah.
prevent those issues.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Bit of a culture issue, but I see where you're coming from essentially.
Yeah. And I so okay.
My one last ask would be for us to get a clarification on, how much, as the San Andreas Medical Authority, how much leeway do I have in that sense of like, I am the authority of all medical. Therefore, if, for example, with the weed, if I made a law for prescription marijuana, which is a different kind of weed from consumer, that even though they have their law, if it should it's just adding to it, or if there's still a need to collaborate with the counties, which I am completely, like I said, I talked to them before I even posted the law. It's more as I didn't thought it would be an issue considering to not have like their signatures, for example,
Sure.
considering that it is,
I think that specifically is another slightly grayer area, since what you are proposing is medicinal marijuana. However,
Yes.
marijuana is still illegal as a whole within our state, so it crosses as well into the laws and how those are handled, which is the jurisdiction of both of the mayors. So essentially, I don't think that this would be an issue for most of your legislation, and if it is possible to adjust the county legislation to state that any sort of medicinal marijuana is not applied to where it states that would be illegal.
I'm
the
gonna
easier route would be for me to maybe put something in the lines of maybe my
Mhm.
legislation of like implementation being like, by signing to this law, both Los Angeles County and Blaine County like agree to the possession of medicinal marijuana as long as the patient has a legal prescription, and get their signatures instead of having to amend
I
their law.
Can
yeah,
I? What?
I think that's fine since this is kind of a unique case one.
As long as both counties agree to make it legal, I don't see why why you
Yes, if
can't have
they-
medicinal marijuana.
Sure. Yes.
But I think you should just make it. I mean, just it still needs to be the same legal limit. Just because you have a marijuana card doesn't mean that you can have more than the legal limit.
That's
But yeah, but it
what
does.
Kinda the whole
says.
point.
See,
That's the whole
yes,
point. Yeah.
Well, I'm saying
that's the
it
point.
shouldn't mean that, is what I'm saying.
It's not
It
a
does,
marijuana card
that's-
for recreational, though. It's marijuana
No.
prescribed as a treatment, which is
Yes,
why
true.
Yeah,
Does
as
the
Art
law
says, it's a
for-
gray area.
Does the law for Los Angeles County say it's only like there's a legal amount for recreational use?
I believe so.
Let me.
That's
me
where the
take a look.
contradiction is that the Angel initially didn't deny it for. Since the county legislation states that you can legally possess a certain amount, and that anything above that would be illegal, whereas
So
Naya's proposed law
I-
would state that that extra amount would not be illegal to possess.
so
Based on
Since it's
So,
instead of
it-
recreational marijuana, it
Yes.
would be prescribed
see.
marijuana.
it
for
essentially
Yeah.
creates two
Mhm.
different kinds
I
legally
gotcha.
of marijuana.
that's kind of where I was lost too with the ruling on Dr. Naya's legislation is
Mhm.
as a as someone who's come from Boston, we legalized marijuana, we decriminalized it, and then we legalized it, and then the next step was it was medical cards, which meant that if I had a quarter ounce on me, I couldn't go to jail. I might get a fine. But if I had a medical license for it, I can not only make purchases at a dispensary, but I could, without a fine, have that quarter ounce. But then subsequently, it got fully decriminalized, which means that you can go buy at a dispensary. So in that mind frame, wouldn't, because it's prescribed marijuana doesn't effectively mean it trumps the legal amount, right? There's like
No, yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yes.
there's the legal amount, then there's the illegal amount, and then there's the amount if it's prescribed. I mean, it's like OxyContin, right? Oxy is illegal, but if it's prescribed, it's not, right?
So,
Mhm.
Dr. Nye, I'm going to ask you a really stupid question.
Mhm.
Why do people need a medical card if marijuana is already legal to possess up to a certain amount?
Because most people might not feel comfortable. There's a lot of people that might not feel comfortable buying it. It's prescribed marijuana. I would love for one day for us to get specifically medical marijuana, like a different strain. That's part of the idea with writing that legislation, to one day get something like that too.
Mm.
But sometimes oxy, for example, is not, people with addictions can't use that. And it could be that the next mayor, for example, backs out on their marijuana act, right? Signs
Mhm.
off out of it and says no more marijuana in Los Santos County. But
Nino's
then the people
nugs?
who need it for their
Fucking shot. You want my
health
nugs in
can
your
still
mouth,
have access to it.
motherfuckers?
That's the key
Okay.
thing for me is if at some point marijuana was made illegal in full, this would still be in effect.
I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
So if
That
I
was
may real
mean.
quick, it's also a matter of dosage. If you are prescribed it as medical treatment, you're going to need a certain amount in certain times is what you're going to be prescribed. That dosage may be above what
You gotta
is
speak
legal
up,
limits
Archie.
in this counties. Oh, sorry. It may be the dosage that you may need may be above the legal limit within the counties, and so it should be able to be a higher amount in case you need it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
It essentially raises the cap of what's legal to possess if you've got the prescription, from my understanding.
so Dr. Naya, if this were to get passed, and I'm not saying I'm gonna sign or anything, but like if it were to get passed, in your opinion, how strict is it gonna be on who gets cards and how much are they gonna get? Like, is there gonna be a cap to how much marijuana they're gonna be prescribed or something?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Like
as
somebody
I
walking around with
wrote
like
it-
20 grams of marijuana is gonna be kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, no, that is yeah, it's
20
I
grams
wrote
isn't
it
a lot though, is it?
as 10 grams, which I'm pretty sure that's like
10 bags, 20 joints.
Yeah. And we have a few doctors that are licensed pharmacists, so it's not even every doctor can prescribe so far. We vet our doctors really well to know who can prescribe or not, because I don't want some like, new resident that was an intern 2 weeks ago prescribing drugs for
Yeah, but
defense
an
because
ounce isn't a
they
lot.
won't. So the
Right.
doctors that we have that are licensed pharmacists right now, they are very, very qualified and hardworking people.
There is also a pharmacist tag within
Yeah.
the ABT, so anyone permitted to do so can
Mhm.
be found to be a registered
20
pharmacist.
grams. 20 grams. Yeah.
Any officer who needs to check.
Yep.
So,
Isn't an
with
ounce
that being said,
8?
I'm assuming your legislation, you haven't reposted
That's
it yet.
2.5
Has been the
ounces,
14
no?
days.
Am I
It
tripping?
has been the 14 days, but we'll probably work on getting Pratt's signature. And,
Oh.
Okay. I think he has the marijuana legalization thing on the docket right now, don't he?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I got to talk to him about that.
I don't want to be pedantic here, but 20 grams of marijuana actually isn't a lot.
I don't smoke,
it's
so
not that
20
much.
grams sounds like
Yeah.
20 pounds to me.
No,
Oh my
it's,
God.
it's
that's not how
No.
it works.
I
yeah.
If I had a pound of weed, that's considered normal for medical use.
I don't smoke, so
Yeah.
20 grams can mean, a kilo for all I care.
453 grams in a pound.
Yeah.
What's the legal limit? Isn't it 13 grams? Or 13 ounces? Which one is it?
We
Yeah.
5 bags.
How much?
6
Yeah.
bags. 6
How much
bags.
is that?
6 grams.
6 grams?
Oh no, we're
Yeah, so
entering
20 grams is illegal.
Well, it's a little more elastic than that
Yeah.
because grams and bags and joints don't weigh the same. So
Oh my God.
it's
Okay,
a
whatever.
little more
It-
complicated.
Yeah,
Whatever the
there's-
illegal limit is.
let's put it this way.
Mhm.
Abilene had to do like 10 drafts of the weed legislation because what looks like a gram in your hand may be 2 grams, but when you compare it to the
Right.
bag, there's a lot of weird shit going on. A
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
magic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
So-
we won't hold that part against anyone too harshly. All right. Well, with all of those questions, Hallow, how do you feel about that? If they just sign that off instead of adjusting their legislation to fit with Naya's, for just expediency, allowing them to just sign off on Naya's?
Well, doesn't Pred have to pass his legislation in Blaine County for it to be legal before he can sign off on it?
No.
No, it
Naya's
was already
legislation.
passed in
Mhm.
with Andy's. Andy signed on to that legislation. If I'm not
She
mistaken.
signed the.
Yep.
She signed which one?
Marijuana decriminalization.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
There's
I mean,
also
if
the
he
fact
signs,
that
that's fine.
Naya's legislation does not override the legislation in each county. It would still stand by itself, even if that was
Yep.
removed.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
All right, perfect. Get those signatures.
I was gonna say if you could just add a tidbit in there that having a medical marijuana card does not override street laws, and you can still receive a DUI for driving high
Oh,
or
that's
driving under the influence.
That's a good point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you still need to follow all the
Oh.
laws of the city. Just because you have a medical marijuana card doesn't mean that you don't have to follow laws.
Oh fuck! You just reminded me.
Oh.
I don't know if we should bring it
Okay.
up now. I feel like we have enough on our plate.
No balls.
It's like, is this a rabbit hole?
The balls.
Currently, the penal code does not align with existing legislation, making some of the penal code charges not only unconstitutional but inappropriately pressed on civilians.
Are you able to
like what charges?
item?
Yeah.
Most
Uh,
of them.
Most of them, yeah.
Oh,
It's yeah,
do you
I'm
mean
just
most of
going
them?
through each of the charges in the penal code one by one and
Yeah.
marking things down and trying to either find a constitutional justification for it.
Louder.
legislative-
Watch it.
Sorry, I keep getting quiet on. I am going through the whole penal code currently, looking through each of the charges and trying to see which ones are already lined with constitutional or have legislative backings and which ones do not line up with either. And I am working on getting that all together. So when I have something like that, I will reach out.
Yeah, let
Yeah,
me know.
Snag.
I'm apologies.
Nope, you're good. Whenever you get that list together, and you get the ones that are backed and then aren't backed, and then whatever ones are causing conflictions, just send it to Arcadia, and then she can send it to us.
All right.
You know what, guys? Fuck it. Let's just start over. Am I right? I mean, we're already doing it
Stop,
anyway. Let's
stop,
just do it.
Stop.
Let's just YOLO, you know?
Um, yeah.
My God.
I mean, I'm totally fine. I mean, honestly, like this season was kind of just like slow. There was barely anything wasn't happening in the city. Let's do round 3. No
All right.
marshals this time though.
Oh, I can't
I,
make any
I
promises
don't think
about
we have
that.
a choice in that.
Yeah.
Anyways, they're not around.
I'll contact
True.
Governor Kate Oil and we'll get Constitution 5.0 going.
Sorry.
Good, good.
All right.
Jingle, jingle.
Oh, fuck. Get me out.
Oh
He
God.
said the R word. Get me the fuck
Yeah.
out.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for your time. And looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, no
course.
problem.
right.
Do you have half a second, Justice Grayson?
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Judge
All right.
Grayson.
Justice Grayson, I
Oh,
apologize. I
I
made
keep
assumptions.
telling her
Actually-
that I'm
Listen,
going to quit
I
and
think
give her my
you're
spot.
Actually-
She says no.
Actually,
for
while
some
I got
reason.
you, Hollow, there may be something that
My bad.
you, me, and Grayson may need to actually. Hot, you might want to hear this too.
Sure.
So the TLDR is I've requested FOIAs, and apparently the judges, I believe, cannot see Marshall reports.
Marshal reports.
Oh, yeah, that was brought up to us, actually. Yeah.
They
Okay.
are a body created that can also investigate us. Therefore, if we see their reports, that's slightly contradictory.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Did you talk to. Was it Arcadia that brought it up?
No, I
Somebody brought it up
deduced
to us.
it. I deduced it because look, there's a lot of wild shit that's been happening, and so I lay traps occasionally. And so when I receive my FOIAs and I have 0 Marshall ones, and the judge can't see it, ipso facto, they don't have access to it, right? So
I also
now,
believe the marshals don't have access to where the requests for FOIAs go in. So unfortunately, there are some very fundamental issues with.
I could have swore somebody brought this to us, and they were, and the judge was directly, the judge that brought it to us was directly told that the marshals wouldn't tell them if there was anything or something. I don't remember.
yeah, so it creates like a conundrum, right? So, and I don't, so myself, I believe that something is happening to me that is illegal, let's say, or may require civil reaction, right? I request FOIAs, as is my constitutional right, and it is subsequently denied under the merit of confusing. It turns out it wasn't confusing or difficult or abusive, as Judge Grayson has displayed. That getting my reports was actually very easy. It wasn't the mountain of trouble that many parties were led to believe. But in doing so, there turns out that reports from the marshals involving me were not produced. So now how do I get them?
I can speak with Daisy, the field director.
Oh, yes. And
talk to her and a few complaints, so I can go to her and ask why that didn't occur, or maybe if they hadn't heard of it.
it's actually written. Well, per Justice Angels, he said I was abusing the FOIAs, and she wasn't going to do it. And also, it is documented in report number 10465, which then prompted within 24 hours the rewriting of the FOIA Act, charging civilians $3,000 per document produced and a bunch of unachievable requirements. Now, the reason I point this out is not, I don't want to dive into the why we're contesting the FOIA stuff, but mostly I'm pointing out this, is how do you, let's say, a marshal presses a charge on somebody. If a judge does not have access to their reports, how do you even substantiate?
100%. Do you have my number, by the way? Can you feel free to text me?
It's I
You're
don't
missing
disagree.
info, right?
Initially, we were given marshal reports for that exact reason. I had a case in which
Can you just type out your full name? I would hate to
the other
misspell it.
Grayson referred me to a marshal report that I could not see. And
Wait, you
remedied
can't even
that.
see it?
No. No, I cannot.
Okay, I hate to say this, but this is like the
unhelpful, but
fucking
yeah.
stormtroopers. How did you agree to this?
Emails, which I know everyone hates. I don't care.
Uh,
They work for you guys constitutionally.
They technically work for Angel. It
Well,
still
yeah,
not
but
we are not their boss. That would be only the actual director.
but it says here, and as it's actually noted in the SAG document, the DOJ has the legislative authority, which are you guys, over all legislative and judicial matters within San Andreas. It shall ensure the enforced laws, uphold justice, da 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 da. And then it says the DOJ shall have a law enforcement agency that is responsible. You, the DOJ, have the law enforcement agency.
We do, yes.
So they
But
work
that
for
doesn't
you.
necessarily mean that we are all their boss. I'm sure you understand. Just because, people might work for your cabinet does not mean that they are all the boss of the police department, for example.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that, but maybe
I
this is
do
a
see what you
topic
mean.
for
There
the
are-
other conversation.
No, absolutely. I think there are holes, and the concern with the martial
Yeah.
laws is one of them that we might need to look closer at.
Yeah. Holy fuck. I had no idea. I figured like at least you guys had it.
No.
I told you, Nino. I know.
I knew you
I-
didn't have a
I
Acadia after our
asked Hallow
conversation.
yesterday. Yeah, no.
but-
We have to. I'm trying to get a hold of Daisy.
I should be able to get Daisy pretty easily.
Listen,
Thank you. Yeah, I
this
think I might
is-
need your help with that one.
this should be scary for everybody. I've seen this. This has happened in history before. Many times.
Oh, God.
You know what, Hollow? I think you're right. We got to start again.
Nope.
Oh my God.
All right. You guys have a good day, all right?
It was a good meeting, everybody. Thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah.
If you guys need anything, I'm in the lemon list. And feel
Oh.
free to reach out.
Hey,